Hi, I'm back. Today I'm going to be painting a Mini and talking about why I paint it the way that I do. Hopefully I can help some of the other beginners out there. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, and here we go.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.
Today I'm going to paint Cy Judge Anderson from Osprey Games' Judge Dredd Helter Skelter board game. My basic technique is based on Slap Chop, which is basically a painting system designed to produce high contrast results in a fairly short time frame. I experimented with a few different priming styles before settling on a matte black spray followed by a light white zenithal. After giving the primer a chance to set, I then attack the minis with a heavy dry brushing, which leaves them looking like a black and white photo version of themselves. I do have another video in the works which demonstrates this, which I'll try to post in the next week or so. At this point I get out the Army Painter speed paint and I start painting. A little background is probably worth mentioning at this point. I discovered D&D in 1980. I immediately fell in love with it, and as part of the hobby I started picking up lead figures to use as characters and monsters, which I then attempted to paint. The last time I painted a figure was in 1985, and I've never been particularly good at it. In those days the paints were Humbrol enamels, and it never occurred to me that they might need to be thinned. Fast forward to 2024 and I'm visiting my grandson, and I watched him paint his first ever Mini from a starter kit, which looked about 10 times better than the last Mini I'd ever painted when he was finished. I felt like maybe it was time to have another go. I started painting again in August 2025. This time, however, I had YouTube to guide me, Amazon and my friendly local game store to provide equipment, and 40 years of technological advances in mini painting supplies, gear and techniques. Now, speed paint is amazing, but it is also a little tricky. It certainly lives up to its name in that it provides a base coat, a shadow and highlights in one coat, but it is also very unforgiving. Because it is so liquid, you have to be really careful when you're using it. If you make a mistake, it can be quite difficult to cover it up. So it's extra important that you paint between the lines. As you can see, I tend to go top down and outside in. I start at the head and work down, but not for any practical reasons. It just makes sense to me that the very last thing I paint is the base. Paint that black edge around the base and then you're done. Outside in, on the other hand, is pretty much the exact opposite of the advice I was getting on the internet. So why? I do it because of the way speed paint flows on the Mini, and because it is so unforgiving if I make a mistake. By painting the outermost objects on the sculpture first, I don't have to worry as much if I get a few splodges where they shouldn't go. But if I paint the outermost part last and I mess it up, I end up with paint over the top of the bits near it. For example, if I paint the belt first, then I can paint the robes later and just be a bit careful so I don't mess up the belt. If I paint the robes first, I have to be super careful when painting the belt to make sure that I only paint the belt. Much less margin for error and much easier to make a total mess of it. If I paint the belt first and I do a lousy job of controlling the paint, I have multiple options available to fix the problem. If I'm quick enough, I can use a clean wet brush or even my finger to erase the mistake. I can use a bit of matte white acrylic paint to cover the blemish. Or I can paint the robes a darker colour than the belt, which will sort of overpower the lighter colour. So this is why I said that speed paint is not really for beginners. brush control takes practice and beginners haven't had enough practice. I did return to the Mini a bit later and I finished it off. But I mucked up the footage of that. Oops. Like life itself, YouTubing is a work in progress. At this point I've painted the 5 figures of the judges faction for the game and I'm just about to start the next faction. I'm pretty happy with the results and they'll definitely look good on the game board. Now I'm not a great painter and I never will be. I'm 62 years old and this is hard. It's a new skill, even though it was a skill I used a long time ago, but it is a very new skill now because everything I'm doing now is different to the way I used to do it because we have speed paint, we have acrylics, we have multiple people out there telling us how to do things. Anyway, I put a link to the game on Amazon, as well as links to some of the paints I used and the Vallejo brushes I used to paint Judge Anderson below in the comments. In the description. If you want to get them, please use those links. I get a small commission and it doesn't cost you any more than it would have anyway. I'm not sponsored by anyone, so anything I'm using is my own personal choice. If you enjoyed this, please click on the like button, share it with friends, and subscribe if you'd like to see more. See you next time.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed.